Hello everyone, my name is David Willis and today I'm coming to you with a very special video. Recently, Lockheed Martin invited me out to come see their Destination Space 2050 event in Washington, D.C. so I could share with you guys a few of the really cool things they're currently working on. At this event, there were several different communities, all pertaining to different technologies Lockheed Martin is developing. Knowing what you guys like, I decided to spend most of my time checking out community number 2. Alright, community number 2, extraplanetary operations. This should be cool. As a matter of fact, it was cool. There it is. Look at that, look at how pretty it is. We will of course get to the MADV with some expert interviews too in time, but first I'd like to have a little fun driving on the lunar surface.
Hi, I'm Kristen Basham with Lockheed Martin. Here's our Lockheed Martin and General Motors Lunar Rover. So our Lunar Rover driving game here shows a little bit of what our design kind of looks like. It changes a little bit, but this is one of the possibilities of our design. And what this game does is kind of show us the capabilities of our rover. So we are trying to work on a rover that is fully autonomous, level 5 autonomy on the surface of the moon. We've got a lot of abilities with a robotic arm on the vehicle provided to us by the Canadian space company MDA. They're the same company that does Canada Arm that's on the space station. So we can pick up things, deploy small rovers, move around the moon, and help build some infrastructure with our lunar vehicle. So we're working on it right now. We'll have it on the surface in just a few years.
That's really cool. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me about the rover.
Thank you for stopping by. We're super excited about it.
Awesome. There we go. All right, so.
Okay, so when you're ready, all you're going to do is hit that trigger and then press forward. You don't have to press any buttons. So just push forward and you're driving towards that triangle.
Oh, wow.
It's very sensitive.
Okay. All right, we got our lunar rover. Whoa. Okay. Let's see. We got our 2 astronauts right up there. This is like Kerbal Space Program, except with a lot less, you know, breaking apart when I make a turn like that. Whoa! Whoa! Okay, there's the Earth. That's pretty cool. Whoa! Okay. Hold on, okay. Alright, where's the target? Where'd the target go? There it is, there it is. There's the target. Okay, I'm gonna, there we go, stay still. Stay still. There we go. Up. Aha! Woo! Okay. That was pretty fun. Yeah, yes. Okay, guys, I've come back to the Lunar Rover and I've made an achievement. I've gotten the actual game stuck here. Yeah, he's moving it, and that is not moving. That is a stuck Lunar Rover, and I did that. That's all me. We did it, guys. That's epic. Thank you. After potentially breaking Lockheed Martin's video game, I decided to go and do something a little less destructive, such as talking to Rob Chambers about power beaming on the moon. Alright, so with this MADV, we have these cool lasers, which are not just lasers, as Rob here can explain to us. If you don't mind,
sure.
What do you do for Lockheed?
So my badge says visionary. So I'm the director of strategy and business development, future concepts, if you will, here at Lockheed Commercial Civil. And so first let me talk a bit about MADV. It's actually the Mars Ascent and Descent Vehicle, but as it turns out, when you do the math, you can land both on Mars and you can do lunar landings with the same vehicle. So this is our cryogenic LOX hydrogen system concept that we've got, again, both for flying in and landing at Mars, as well as at the moon. And it loves cold and dark locations. We parked it out in the sun in this particular shot. But you'll see all these green lasers, and what that is talking about is power beaming. So when we go to the moon, we're going to have, there's lots of sunlight, we can get solar array, we have a lot of fission concepts and nuclear fusion that we're working as well. But how do you transport that into perhaps darkly shadowed locations or over, to the edge of the horizon and then keep on going with repeater stations? So we've been looking at power beaming that could be with lasers or with RF to distribute power as opposed to running cables across the whole length and duration of the moon itself.
Right.
So this is our concept for what a really sustainable, very full economic situation could look at the moon out in 2050. And of course, that paves the way for us to do the same things as Mars. So it's not moon or Mars, it's moon first, get that in place, and then head on to the red planet.
All right. And so these power beams, right?
Yep.
They're literally beaming electricity through a laser to the moon.
Yep, so think of it as you collect the power however you do, whether it's with fission or fusion or solar, you convert that to optical energy, in this case if we're using lasers, and then you have a receptor at the other end. And think of it as very, very concentrated sunlight at a particular frequency, so it's super high efficiency. You convert that light back into electrons, and you also convert the heat you get into heat. Parts of the moon are really, really cold. So if maybe over here is actually somebody in a shadowed region where we think there'll be water and volatiles, they'll have a receiver for that laser. They'll get some of the heat to keep themselves warm and alive, if you will, the robots, but then convert that energy into actually electrons to drive drills or scoops or things that will extract water from the regolith, crack it. Now we have hydrogen and oxygen. We truck that over with our mobility systems, gas up the MADV and go back into orbit. So very much a closed loop system.
That's cool. That's cool. Fully sustainable, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have green energy. Green, right?
Green energy.
It is green. We actually did that on purpose. But you have to have green energy. There's no oxygen, right? So you're not going to be burning fossil fuels on the moon. So everything has to be 100% sustainable and renewable, live off the land.
Right. That's cool. Thank you for
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, I'm gonna go see what else there is.
After talking with Rob about power beaming, I got a chance to chat with Gary Napier about Lockheed Martin's incredibly cool Mars Base Camp concept.
Hi, I'm Gary Napier with Lockheed Martin. So we were just talking about Mars Base Camp, and ultimately Mars Base Camp is this really cool concept that Lockheed Martin developed to show how Orion can go to Mars. So Orion was designed and certified to do 21 days, a crew for, going to the moon and come back. That's all about consumables on the spacecraft. It ultimately can dock, at the gateway unattended for upwards of 6 months. We've done studies that says Orion is capable of going out into deep space with additional systems for upwards of 1,000 days or 3 years, which is about what it takes to go to Mars and back. Those additional systems is what we ultimately came up with. It's called Mars Base Camp. Of course, you're not going to just fly to Mars in just an Orion. You got to have those larger supportive systems, the habitat, the propulsion, the electric power, etc. And Mars Base Camp actually uses 2 Orions. So Orion's kind of the command deck, and then you've got the supportive laboratories and the habitats and the propulsion. Lately, we modified our Mars Base Camp concept to use nuclear thermal propulsion, and that's going to get us to Mars faster and then bring us back home faster. Slowing gives you more time at Mars, and it also, of course, slows down the total exposure of radiation and being out there in deep space. So Mars Base Camp, it's a concept. It's a cool, exciting concept, but it's just basically showing how Orion can be used to go to Mars.
That's awesome. Thank you very much.
After chatting with Gary, I met up with Rob again, this time to discuss nuclear power in space.
Okay, so when we think about how we're going to get to Mars, space nuclear, whether it's power or propulsion, is really fundamental to it as an enabler. So we've been looking at what can we do at the moon first, and in the what I call the Earth-Moon trade routes that are going to occur over the next 30 years, right, to get us to 2050. So there are 2 really main focuses that Lockheed is doing right now. One is fission-based nuclear power and propulsion. So that includes nuclear reactors in space or on the surface of the moon, ultimately on Mars, that can take that heat, turning into electricity with like Brayton cycle power. I'm a steampunk guy, so just think steampunk, right? I mean, you take the heat, you run it through compressors and so forth, not with steam, but to actually generate then dynamos, to spin the dynamos, get the electricity. That's all that's involved in that. Those small microreactors that we're already starting to have here on Earth are perfect for what we want to do early at the moon. Now, if you take a nuclear reactor and you flow hydrogen through it, you heat the hydrogen and it comes out the other side as, it's still hydrogen, it's not plasma, but it is very, very high temperature, it's ionized. That is one of the best propulsive efficiencies that you can get. So that's the second application we're looking at, is nuclear thermal propulsion, which is flowing hydrogen, LOX hydrogen, or cryogenic hydrogen, flow that through the reactor, get high thrust and super high performance. So we've got concepts now for nuclear thermal propulsion tugs that will fly between the Earth and the Moon, and that will also serve as really the exact same systems that will then literally propel us on to Mars.
That's very cool. That's awesome.
Cool.
Is there any hardware being currently worked on at the moment?
Yes. So several of us in industry, including Lockheed Martin, are working on a fission power system that will go onto the moon. We're in early study contracts. We've done fuel testing. We've done these Brayton cycles, power cycle, closed cycles that convert heat to power. And on the nuclear thermal propulsion side, we're partnered up with a company called BWXT, who provide a lot of the reactors, really all the reactors for Navy here on Earth. We're using their technology, working with them. We've got fuel studies and propellant flow studies ongoing with DARPA and with NASA today for these nuclear thermal propulsion systems. So it's right around the corner. We're about ready to go fly.
That's awesome. Thank you again.
Hey, my pleasure.
All right, see you around.
And of course, I couldn't leave without having a chat about everyone's favorite Mars ascent and descent vehicle, the MADV.
All right, hello again, Rob.
Hey, David. Okay, so the MADV, I know there's actually some folks out there that have followed. We first came up with the MADV maybe 5 years ago. We had talked about Mars Base Camp, what you can do from orbit, remote piloting of drones and hypersonic gliders and so forth. But then we said, okay, the same exact technologies that we had in the Mars Base Camp, LOX hydrogen cryo, we could put into an actual lander. So I'll give you some of the behind the scenes if you want on how we came up with that. So in the original Mars Base Camp, all LOX hydrogen, big tanks, and the command deck, if you will, the control deck, is the Orion spacecraft up front. If you take all the skin off of Orion and the heat shield, and you're left with the avionics controls, flight software, of course we've incorporated Alexa, Amazon Alexa, WebEx by Cisco into the cockpit with our latest stuff we're doing on Orion. That gives you a today available system that can be used to control a whole spacecraft. From the landing perspective, I'm going to walk over a little bit.
All right.
So if you tore this off, what you would find would be essentially the Orion cockpit with a little bit of a different structure behind it. Down below it are hydrogen and oxygen tanks, no different than a LOX hydrogen long duration cryogenic stage that we're working on right now for a couple of opportunities here. And then a variety of engines at the bottom. The skin for this thing, which you totally don't need for the moon, was for the MADV, the Mars Ascent Descent Vehicle. So single stage system that, because it's LOX hydrogen, not methane, has the ability to come all the way down and land and take off again. There's some math behind that that we never really shared with everybody. With this sort of shape of design and the alloys that we have available today, it's actually no worse from a heating perspective than an SR-71, which Lockheed Martin built back in the 60s, as you guys know, right? So the technology is not crazy, it's not some new futuristic system we have to develop. And with this shape, you can actually do S-curves such that you take out 80% of your entry velocity from what's called a one-sol orbit. So think kind of a low Mars orbit. So the reason I'm getting into all this detail, you'll hear in a minute. So from that one-sol orbit, you take about 80% of the delta V out just with aerodynamics, SR-71S. You kick up and then you land on your, we had 5 or 6 engines in this particular version. Then when you go back up into orbit, that's 100%. That 120% of one-way delta V is almost identical to what you need from a pure delta V standpoint for landing from low lunar orbit onto the moon surface and back up again. So what that means is, with this Mars-capable system, you don't need the skin, but you have to take the skin off. The math closes where that exact same spacecraft that we designed for Mars can just sit and land on the moon, take back off again, get refueled in orbit. We of course refuel it in orbit from fission nuclear reactor powered water extraction, crack the water, hydrogen and oxygen, throw it up via electrical, spin launch. Those guys are awesome. Rail guns, catapults, whatever you want. Don't use engines, that would be silly. Throw up your prop up into orbit, catch it, and then refuel, wash, rinse, and repeat. The cool thing is it's exactly the same serial number, exactly the same part number that we can use at the moon that we can then haul out onto Mars and do exactly the same thing.
That's cool. And real quick, because I know everyone's going to want to know this, what does it launch on?
It launches on whatever. We're agnostic. We'll fly in anybody that's got a heavy lift.
So, but like right now, that includes what? SLS and
SLS. We've looked at New Glenn, of course. We've looked at all of the SpaceX opportunities. Vulcan.
Oh wow, Vulcan.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the idea is, we can launch empty. You got to work. It is an aerodynamic vehicle, so we can plop on top of a rocket. Got to work a little bit of details there. But if we launch it empty, it's not very heavy, right? So we can get into low Earth orbit on a whole variety of launch vehicles. Gas up in low Earth orbit, flying out to the moon. Now, I'll say one last thing. If you couple this with a nuclear thermal propulsion engine, now you've got like an entire new level of capability. And remember gear ratio, right? So from low Earth orbit, a lot of people are getting into low Earth orbit. To get from low Earth orbit to wherever you want to go, if you go to LOX hydrogen, you're 50%, 30, 70% better than methane. NTP engines give you twice what you get from LOX hydrogen. So you're up to the 900 second ISP level. That opens up trade routes between the Earth, Moon, Mars, asteroids for resources that are fundamentally transformative to what we have today. So think of this as Mark 1. You get a nuclear version and the sky is not the limit.
Right, awesome. And I had one more question, hold on. I'm gonna cut out my thinking process, but there's one. Oh yes, if you can say, how much does it weigh empty?
Oh man. So there is a paper. So I'm going to do, because I won't try to make it up, because if I get it wrong, my guys will be all over me. There's a paper out there that we did for AIAA. If you look up Mars Base Camp, MADV, there's an entire design document for this.
Oh really?
Folks, oh yeah, Delta V, empty mass, flight profiles, the whole 9 yards. So it could go viral. Pull it down. And if you can't find it, reach out to me. David's got my contact info, and we'll get you, we'll email it to you.
All right. Thank you once again.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, David.
Destination Space 2050 was an incredibly informative event, and I am so thankful that Lockheed Martin reached out to me asking if I would like to join them. There was so much cool stuff there, and while I wasn't able to put it all in this video, I sure do hope that what I got to include was as interesting to you guys as it was to me. And with that, I've been David Willis, and I'll see all of you in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I really hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I did making it, and if everything goes according to plan, this video should be out just a few days before the launch of the mighty Space Launch System. So let's all cheer on the big orange rocket as it prepares to make that most momentous of voyages. Additionally, I would like to also give a shout out to my channel members, Would Die for Chomrisky and Myers. If you'd like to get your very own shout out at the end of my videos, consider becoming a channel member. And with that, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.